guys saw. You guys saw what I was in there tonight. Yeah, I thought that, once those bright lights hit and that round went and...
No, I think is the answer for the trilogy. I mean, you're right. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen in boxing. It is the wild, wild west. If there's enough money, it makes sense.
I can see him having a rematch again, or asking for a rematch, but ultimately...
There's always the potential of a trilogy. Could be in 6 months, could be in 12 months, could be in 18 months. Conor could fight another fight first, potentially give Chris a bit more of a break.
Chris Eubank Jr. is making it clear that he wants a third fight with Conor Benn. Even though he had a tough night in the ring, he's already asking for another match. He's determined to get back in there and prove himself again.
You guys saw what I was in there tonight. Yeah, I thought that, once those bright lights hit and that round went and,
Conor Benn notes that Chris Eubank Jr. is asking for a third fight after their rematch, but Benn thinks it's better to leave it for now. The trilogy isn't confirmed yet. If it does get approved, fans will be updated. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any news about this possible big fight.
I can see him having a rematch again, or asking for a rematch, but ultimately, I think we should just let it lie now. No, just let it lie. We've done what we had to do. We sold our stadium twice. We done what it said it was going to do on a tin. So let's just call it a day now. Only fight that matters is the last fight anyway. So.
Adam Smith talks about the huge money that could be made if Chris Eubank Jr. gets a third fight with Conor Benn. He mentions that both families have already had 2 fights each, so a trilogy might be a fair way to end the rivalry. Adam Smith also shows respect for Chris Eubank Jr. and says he feels for him after a tough night. He praises Conor Benn for performing well under pressure, noting that another loss would have been very difficult. It's clear that Chris Eubank Jr. wants another chance to prove himself.
Huge money in the trilogy fight, and maybe we just leave it at there. The father's had 2 and they've had 2 and it's 1 each, and maybe that's a nice way to finish it. But yeah, I feel for Chris tonight. I'm really happy for Conor, because I thought he boxed the fight of his life. Under real pressure, actually, because another loss would have been...
Nigel Benn says the trilogy with the Eubanks is over and there's no need for another fight. He explains that they've already beaten the Eubank family and it doesn't bother him at all. He adds that the younger generation won't continue this rivalry and they don't want to go for a trilogy anymore. Nigel Benn's comments show that he's done with the situation and is ready to move on. Chris Eubank Jr. may want another fight, but the Benn family believes the story is already finished.
I don't think, we beat the Eubanks. It doesn't bother me. I'm a bit more mature than that.
The grandchildren ain't having the sort of trilogy of the legacy.
No, we don't want that no more, mate. It's over with.
Gareth Davies says a trilogy with Chris Eubank Jr. could happen if Eubank claims that the weight cut affected his performance. He also warns that there are signs Eubank is struggling with weight management and that his age might be catching up with him. Davies points out the physical challenges Eubank would face in another fight. Even though Eubank Jr. wants the trilogy, Gareth Davies suggests it could be risky for him and that fans should think about whether he can safely compete against Conor Benn again.
Could be a trilogy if he says he got the weight cut wrong, but my view is we're starting to see the danger signs of his weight cut and certainly the danger signs of his age.
Eddie Hearn says there's no need for a third fight with Chris Eubank Jr. He explains that the plan is to move Conor Benn back down to his proper weight class. Hearn praises Benn as the new star of British boxing and points out that he has filled the Tottenham Stadium twice. He adds that Benn needed to be a bit smarter in the fight, but is still very exciting to watch. Even though Chris Eubank Jr. wants the trilogy, Eddie Hearn is focused on moving forward with a smarter strategy.
No need for a trilogy, no?
No, we want to move back down. Conor's the new star of British boxing, look, he's filled Tottenham twice and, he needed to be a bit smarter there. You know how exciting he is, but he just needed every round. I was just saying to him, just concentrate, please.
Derek Chisora comments on the idea of another fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. He says the last fight was great, but doubts if a third one is really necessary. Chisora thinks the story should end there, no trilogy. Even though Eubank Jr. might want another opportunity, Chisora makes it clear he believes they should finish things respectfully and move on from what's already happened.
It was great, but are we going to see that again? Do you want to see that again? No. He's done 1-1, that's it. Leave it like
According to the weight concept, Chris Eubank Jr. may want a third fight with Conor Benn, but they don't think it's realistic. The idea is that after his last fight, Eubank Jr. gave everything he had and might not have much left. From this perspective, another fight doesn't make much sense, because the first one already took too much out of him. While Eubank Jr. seems eager for a trilogy, many experts believe it's unlikely to actually happen.
To come back, maybe do the trilogy, I don't think there's any shot in hell they do a trilogy after that fight. There ain't no way you do a trilogy there. That doesn't make any sense. Because what happened in this fight showed me that the first fight was Chris Eubank Jr. left everything in that first fight. He had nothing left to give.
Liam Goff thinks there shouldn't be a third fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and his rival because they've already fought twice. He says Eubank Jr. didn't look good in the last fight, and it's hard to see how he could come back from that. Goff also says Conor Benn should focus on going back to welterweight and look for other opponents. While Eubank Jr. might want a third fight, many people in boxing feel the series is over and another fight isn't needed.
Now twice, we should never see a trilogy, and honestly, Chris Eubank Jr., I don't know what he does. He looked awful, absolutely awful in there. As for Conor Benn, listen, if you can get back down to welterweight, get back down.
Eubank Jr. is the fighter most likely to go for a third fight with Conor Benn. Experts say that if he trains well and uses his jab wisely, he has a good chance to win. McGann even thinks he could win with a late stoppage if he follows his plan perfectly. Overall, the commentary shows that Eubank Jr. is determined and skilled. Experts believe that if he gives his best in another fight, he could do really well.
The one that's going to go for, if he goes for a proper training camp, boxes a little bit behind his jab, I think he'll get the win. Maybe a stoppage late.
Sam Jones says Chris Eubank Jr. is a stubborn fighter who will probably want a third fight with Conor Benn. He thinks Eubank Jr. won't accept the last result and will want another chance to prove himself. But Jones isn't sure if the fans will fully support it. This shows that while Eubank Jr. is determined and wants a trilogy, not everyone thinks it's a good idea, and the public might not be very excited for another fight.
He's stubborn, isn't he? He's probably going to look at that and think, I can't go out kind of like that, and he'll probably decide he wants a trilogy, but I personally don't. I can't see the third one washing with the public. Do you know what I mean? I don't think the public...
Dominic Engel talks about Chris Eubank Jr. He says Eubank Jr. might have felt he needed to win to even things out with Conor Benn. Engel also points out that Eubank Jr. seemed low on energy and motivation during the fight. Even if he wants a third fight, Engel says he didn't show enough determination in the ring. The commentary suggests that if Eubank Jr. wants another fight, he needs to get his focus and passion back.
Match. And Eubank's had to win. Maybe he's got into this fight. I think, well, if he beats me, it's 1-1, whatever. But he just didn't have that fire in his belly tonight. You know, maybe he's just lost the taste for it. But for me, you know, I don't come to many live events.
Carl Froch talks about how Chris Eubank Jr. handles interviews and fights. He says Eubank Jr. takes his time to think things through, which can be a good thing. Froch also notes that Eubank Jr. tries to be very clear and articulate, but sometimes explains things too much. The commentary shows that Eubank Jr. is smart and strategic, both in and out of the ring. Even though he wants a trilogy with Conor Benn, experts like Froch see that Eubank Jr. is careful, focused, and able to plan his next moves well.
I think you know what Chris is like. He takes his time, which isn't a bad thing. He tries to be articulate, and he sort of overspoke the point he was making for a change.
Ed Olado raises concerns about Chris Eubank Jr. wanting a trilogy fight with Conor Benn. He says the age and weight differences make it risky. Olado explains that Eubank Jr. should be careful about moving back to middleweight, while Benn should return to welterweight. He also mentions other big fights Benn could take against fighters like Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, and Lewis Crocker. The commentary shows that even though Eubank Jr. wants another fight, experts worry about the physical challenges. Fans are reminded that strategy and safety are just as important as wanting a trilogy.
If it doesn't happen, just because of the age and the weight difference as well, the idea of asking Chris to try and make middleweight again is crazy. And for Conor Benn, he needs to go back down to 147. I don't know if he can make welterweight, but that's where he should go, because there are so many big fights against a few loudmouth Americans, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney. There's a guy in Ireland called Lewis Crocker who's got...
Dave Allen gives a strong analysis of Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. He praises Benn for winning the last fight, but says Eubank Jr. looked tired and worn out. Allen explains that Benn is not yet a top-level champion, but he did beat a tired opponent. He doubts that Benn could beat Eubank Jr. if Eubank Jr. were in his prime. The commentary emphasizes that Eubank Jr. still has the talent and power to compete, but fans should consider his current form before thinking about another trilogy with Benn.
Take anything away from it. He lost to a faded Eubank. and then he just beat a shot to bits one. That don't mean that he's not 147. He's not 147 champion elect on the back of that.
No, can he win a world title at 147 now though?
Maybe, but the champions aren't. They're not A-level champions. They're like the B-level champions. Barrios, Crocker, they're very good fighters, but they're not great fighters. But I'm still not sure he'll beat him. I don't think Conor Benn's a fantastic boxer. Nigel Benn, 1990, Nigel Benn would have flattened Chris Eubank Jr. in one round tonight.
Eddie Hearn praises Conor Benn for a smart and powerful performance against Chris Eubank Jr. He says Benn won almost every round and nearly finished the fight quickly. Hearn points out that this fight was different from their first match, with Benn boxing intelligently and staying in control of his emotions. He also notes that Benn worked the body well and scored a big win as a welterweight moving up to middleweight. Commentary shows that while Eubank Jr. wants a trilogy, Benn proved his skill and strength, making another fight a big challenge.
Really, he won every round, dropped it, 10 more seconds, the fight's over. Different kind of fight, obviously, to the first fight, but needed to be. Needed to box smart and not use his emotions in there. I thought he boxed really well, busted him up to the body, and massive win for a welterweight to come up to middleweight and avenge that defeat and finally get a victory for the Benn family in the 4th episode.
Dominic Engel shares his disappointment with Chris Eubank Jr.'s performance against Conor Benn. He says the fight didn't meet expectations and was very poor until the last round. Engel acknowledges that Benn won and deserved it. He also points out that Eubank Jr. didn't show up fully in the ring. His legs were slow, and he looked old and tired. The commentary shows that while Eubank Jr. might be motivated for a trilogy, his performance raises doubts, and fans should think about whether he can compete at the same level again.
For me, the fight didn't live up to the expectations. I'm extremely underwhelmed how they've pulled that off. Very, very, very poor fight. Disappointing. It came alive in the last round. That's it. The last round it happened. And Conor Benn got the win, rightly so. But Eubanks tonight didn't turn up. Old overnight. His legs weren't in.
Johnny Nelson explains that Chris Eubank Jr. may have overestimated himself by thinking he can repeat his first fight against Conor Benn. He points out that while anyone can lose weight, doing so in boxing comes with big risks. Nelson says Eubank Jr. gave up any advantage he had in the previous fight, and putting himself at a disadvantage in the ring is very dangerous. He reminds fans that boxing is unforgiving and mistakes can be costly. The commentary shows that while Eubank Jr. may want a trilogy, experts like Nelson believe he must carefully consider his strategy and physical limits before going for another fight.
What I can get away with from the last fight, for Chris, the pendulum is, he's rinsed himself down that much, he's thinking he can do it again. As I said, anybody can get down to the weight, it's what you can do with the weight. Boxing is the worst place to be if you aren't going to put yourself at a disadvantage, because it's the only place you can legally get killed. And so what Chris did was, Chris depleted any advantage he had.
Chris Eubank Jr. is clearly eager for a trilogy fight with Conor Benn. His loss in the rematch has only made him more determined. Experts like Johnny Nelson, Dominic Engel, and Adi Olado point out that there are big challenges, such as weight, age, and physical condition, that Eubank Jr. must overcome to make another fight competitive. Conor Benn has already shown his skill and intelligence in the ring, so a third fight will demand the best from both fighters. Fans are watching to see if Eubank Jr. can regain his focus, prepare a strong training camp, and come up with a smart strategy to make a trilogy possible. This fight could be a true test of determination, heart, and skill for both men. Are you backing Chris Eubank Jr. for the trilogy, or do you think Conor Benn will keep his advantage? Share your thoughts and join the conversation.